Hey, what's up, everybody? So, like I said on last week's episode of Enough to Keep Going, on these rare occasions where I am both engineering and host, I have to actually use my own mic as the sound check for the live stream, so I needed to verify that we had audio going out. So, welcome back. My name is Gastically Samus, here with my cohort in crime, K-Man, back with another episode of Why the Internet Needs to Calm the Hell Down About Gaming, a little podcast that started out about the grief and the strife on the internet and morphed into just two friends talking about games. So, K-Man, how are you doing?
Good, man. I'm good, man. How are you?
Good, man. Are you ready for this hour of power?
Hour of power. I am ready, man. It's the most energetic I've been all Mondays, so I am. I'm here. I'm in the moment.
No, I'll get there. Tonight is actually my roughest night of production during the week because we do the podcast so late on my time. I attempt to get through most of the meat of my evening with no caffeine, and so in the half hour walk up to the podcast, I'm about dead on my feet, trying to struggle through until go time. So let's start the segment off with let's start off the podcast with segment number one, which is current gaming operations.
That's right. Get those folks.
Yeah.
Get those folks.
So I've been busy and after Christmas stuff. Projects are rolling at work and whatnot, so I haven't had a whole bunch of time to myself. But I have been able to game a little bit. I'm going to start off with my second item here. I did do subscribe to PS Plus. So Maneater was free for the PS5 on PS Plus, free with your subscription. So I downloaded that because I was interested in seeing what it was about, and I'm kind of glad I didn't buy it. But it is You Are a Shark, and they try to they put you in the ocean and give you these missions, and you grow. You're a baby shark, and you're or a pup, I guess. And your mom gets killed by this evil bad guy. So they set up this kind of storyline, and I found that amusing. And he's a fisherman, like a Cajun fisherman in the bayou, and you're a shark. And I think the whole point is to level up and get through, enough of these missions to become a big shark and finally face off against him. That's what I'm assuming is going to happen. I'm only a couple hours in, but I feel like it was um, it's a good attempt at something a little different. I don't know that I haven't played enough to say it's a horrible game. It's pretty average. Controls are kind of iffy. You're in the water. You're a shark. But if you have PS Plus, give it a try. It's unique. I mean, I haven't played a fish or a swimming animal as my main playable character in a very long time. So it's giving me kind of like Echo the Dolphin vibes or something like that. But there's some RPG elements in there. You get to level
Wow,
up
that's a
certain.
deep cut.
I
That's,
know, I know, I know. I'm
wow.
sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
You play
Uh,
that on the Sega CD?
it hurts, it hurts. But yeah, man. They have like a skill tree, and you get to upgrade certain aspects of your sharkiness. Uh, I don't know, man. I played it for a little bit. It was something, and then I actually ended up that was what I was playing solo. My wife had a little Ark Survival itch, so I actually loaded that up for the first time on the Series X, and it finally is playable and actually looks pretty decent. I've played it on every Xbox console now. So I from the One S or even the OG, you played it and it ran about 10 frames a second. It was just fucking horrible garbage. Horrible. And then the One X plays it at either like dynamic 1440 at 30 FPS or 1080 at 60 FPS. 1080 looks really, really bad on a 4K screen. There's no upscaling. There's no AA. I mean, it looks pretty bad. So the other option is probably your best bet on the One X, which is what my wife was playing on, and it's playable, at 30 frames. But then you do get dynamic 4K at 60 on the Series X, and it actually looks really nice. And I've played it on PC as well, and I'd say it plays just as well as it plays on my GTX 1080.
So so
So
here's so here's a little question, and I'm gonna make some people mad
yep.
because that's kind of what we do on this podcast.
Hmm.
Keeping it real, being transparent, being open, just saying it like it is. Hypothesis: 7 Days to Die, Rust, Dead by Daylight. All of these are bad games. People play them, people stream them because maybe they have a neat social hook or whatever. But overall, they're bad games in the face of a market that puts out things like Age of Valhalla, Call of Duty. I could go on and on and on and on. These are 60 to 65 score games at best. Where is Ark? Because I kind of associate Ark with that kind of muddle of
Yeah,
things.
with games like I put Ark in that same territory as Rust. Not so much 7 Days to Die, just because the building is a little bit more robust in Rust and in Ark. But Rust, Ark, there's other spin-offs like Citadel, Forged with Fire, and probably 5 or 6 others that I've played along the way. I mean, Ark is a solid like 70 game. I mean, it's not a good game. It's been I have my issues with them because as developers, I know that I got in on early access probably 2013, whenever the hell it came out. And I was promised a lot of shit that never came to be. And then they sold me expansions, which I was stupid enough to buy a couple while it was still in early access. And then they just slapped a 1.0 sticker and released it. They didn't change shit. And I'm a little conflicted. I think the appeal of games like Arc and Rust are how customizable they are. You can run your own server. You can have your own community. You can admin that server however you choose fit. And you can adjust the speed of everything in the game, right? You can make it a really casual server. You can make it a really difficult server. And I think that kind of compensates for the buggy, trashy shithole that it is most of the time, because it really is. But there is a charm that I can see that sucks people in, and that has sucked me in, and that sucks my wife. And my wife is big on crafting, and building. And there's very few games where you could build wall by wall, right, window by window. There's lots of games where you can prefab. Here's a hut. Prefab. Here's a house. Here, I mean, you do everything almost brick by brick. So I can see the appeal there. That doesn't really get me in there for long periods of time. I like the hunting and taming aspect, but at a certain level, it's not fun anymore. At 300 hours, how many more dinosaurs can you tame, and how many things can you see?
Well,
But yeah,
you can hunt in Red Dead Redemption 2.
well, yes, you can, yes,
You
you
know, you
can.
can fab homes in No Man's Sky.
You
Like I
can
just,
fab homes in No Man's Sky.
it's
You
just a
can.
weird. This whole thing is just a weird thing for me. Now, and not Ark is a little like I put Ark in there, but like you said, I kind of feel like just given at least the marketing that I see and the screenshots that I see that Ark is an edge of fidelity a bit above those others, but like I see people
But
playing these.
it's
Yeah,
still a turd. I mean, it's still a turd.
right.
It's not AAA. And the thing is that it didn't bother me when these games were, I bought Rust at $15, right? That's okay. Like, I'll take the risk. But when they come out and they slap a 1.0 on it and charge you a $60 price tag, that bothers me because the game is not a $60 game, not in the least. So different expectations, and I have my issues with the way Ark and Wildcard did that shit. I think it was pretty shady. But a lot of games, I'm hearing that Rust is going to come to consoles too, and I don't know if it's going to come in as early access or, a full-fledged game. But these games are like the forever betas. Like they have been in this state of constant small little updates by a smaller dev team, but it's almost like a passion project, and but yet they're raking in money. I mean, they're making money off servers, they're making money off their updates, they're making money off vanity skins and shit. So yeah, I don't know. Like No Man's Sky is definitely a much more polished on release, not so much, but I mean, I have played it recently, and yeah, you can build on there, but there's no dinosaurs. You're not gonna tame animals. So Ark had that when it came out. It was fucking Jurassic Park, right? So that was cool, but that was also 5-6 years ago. So I don't know.
Do you feel
Yeah.
like these games are double A?
Yeah, the thing is that, God, are they? Are they even double A? I mean, some of them might be, but I've played indie titles that are so much more polished, and have so many deeper mechanics and attributes to them, and maybe not graphically, and this is the strange mix. I mean, when you get a first person, a lot of these games are first person, your graphical fidelity requirements, I feel, instantly go up, and so they're trying to push this envelope with these kind of open world maps with lots of vegetation and lots of shit and animals and NPCs in there, and it gets ridiculous. Do you know that the file size for Arc on console is over 100 gigs, and on PC is over 150 gigs, I think. So that just tells you something. That is insanity, man. Like it takes up an entire fucking drive for some
I
people.
just
Um,
it like the
so
like
it's
every
nuts.
time, and I love. Look, I love all people who love different types of games. So it's not. I'm not trying to throw shade. I am trying to throw shade just in that, like, it seems sometimes when people talk about these things, there's a reality distortion bubble around them, and it's like it's
Uh,
this effort to purport that there's something that they're not. And I'm like, no, look, if it's a garage band kind of level game, then just label it that and just say that you
right.
like it. Don't try and
Yeah, yeah,
tell me
yeah.
that it's Fallout or Elder Scrolls
No,
Online or like.
and it's not. It's not. And it's like liking campy B movies or some shit, Like it's totally okay to like it, but I'm not gonna sell it to you like it's a blockbuster, a summer blockbuster, So we definitely, have our expectations tempered. You go in, and I think people really get excited because they get so wrapped up in these communities. Like you got your little community, you got your server with your people on there. You go uh, on raids with people. You build and foster sometimes your own server, and I get that. That's cool, But that's also the same. It's kind of the same vibe as the MMOs, because MMOs quality wise are usually meh. Like there's nothing to write home about on ESO or WoW or any of those. I mean, visually they're okay, right? They're passable. But you do get into guilds, right? And you form something special, and you have guild housing, and you kind of. So if you want to invest that time, I do think that a lot of these games give you a lot back. That's beyond just graphical and in-game things. I think that sense of community, I think, is what might really build that bubble, right? Where people are like, no, it's my game, it's my server. I spent 1,000 hours on this game. It's amazing, and it's not the game is. It's not that the game is amazing. It's maybe their experience in the game is amazing, and that's cool. But boy, some of these games, man, maybe it's the patience that these people have to deal with all the fucking bugs in these games that just make them saints. You
Well,
know?
the other thing is, it's interesting when you talk about, it's your server and it's my game. It makes me feel like they are things that rushed in to occupy that space. It used to be a time back in the day where you had your own Team Fortress server and your own Half-Life server and your own Call of Duty server, your own Battlefield server, and it feels like, because a lot of the big 800-pound gorillas moved away from that model, and you don't really have that anymore, that only kind of lower tier publishers and developers from a cost perspective could do something like that, or would do something like that, because it wouldn't be profitable for anybody else.
Right.
But that's the hook, is because now that's like the only place that you can find that type of experience.
Yeah, and I think that's definitely part of it. People make whole communities, whole web pages, whole forums, for their servers and I think they like that kind of granularity, and that kind of control. And there's something to be said for that. I can jump on an Ark server that is totally vanilla Ark, right? And if I decide to tranquilize a fucking T-Rex, I could be there 4.5 days taming it, or I could get on, and I shit you not, that's probably real time. Or you can get on a server that has 100 times taming, and that same tame would be 30 minutes, right? So that kind of granularity, I think, suck people in. Getting to know the admins, or getting to kind of foster a community around it. But yeah, I mean, maybe that's kind of where these players have been pushed into, because you can't really run your own server anymore for any of the big AAA titles. There's no more Rainbow Six servers. There's no more GameSpy where you can find a server in your city with a low ping and join it. You know what I mean? There, it's gone. So maybe that's kind of it. Again, campy B movie enjoyment. And my wife really loves Ark, so I jump in there and I help her do things that she's afraid of, like chase down T-Rexes and die continuously over and over again. I actually do have some funny clips where she is just building her house and totally in the zone, because you get into builder mode, and you'll see me in the background just being chased off the screen and back on the screen by a T-Rex as I'm trying to tame it. And I'm like, "Hey honey, don't worry about me, it's cool. It's cool. I don't need any fucking help or anything." So I mean, you have those little experiences that are kind of fun, and that, I think, that draws people in. There's a place for these games. I'm glad they exist, but I also don't. It's sometimes it edges to where some of these developers try to pass these games off as more than what they really are. And it peeves me a little bit. I also had an issue with different versions of this game with Game Pass, and just real quick, I realized that the Game Pass version and the Microsoft PC version are its own thing, and they do not share the same servers as the Steam version, which I also own. So we had to do a little finagling and figure shit out. But I had no idea that they were two completely different builds, completely different versions of the game, down to the start menus and everything. So kind of interesting there too. But yeah, that's what
Cool.
I've been playing.
Yeah, we'll be talking about things like that, things of that nature, a little bit later. But
Yeah,
I
we will.
ran across the same thing specifically on the Microsoft Store and the Game Pass version with things like Forza, because and Halo, the Master Chief Collection, right? Even to this day, which I don't understand. Like, it just seems when these things are broken on the Microsoft side, there's never I don't want to say an effort, because they had to have considered it, but I just wish that they would be transparent and say, look, we cannot ever move Halo the Master Chief Collection to Game Pass if you own the game. And so if you own the game, at least, and I don't know what everybody else's experience is who's playing it purely from Game Pass, but like, you can't. Well, I shouldn't say that. Yeah, it comes across looking wonky when you pull it down from Game Pass versus when you pull it down from the Microsoft Store. It doesn't indicate that you own it. I think on Game Pass or something like that. And then Forza 7, and I think Forza Horizon, like, when you have lots of the downloadable content and the VIP pass and all that, you just need to go get that from the Microsoft Store, and don't get it from Game Pass, even though you own the game. The game appears to be available on Game Pass just from a download. It's your same ID between the Microsoft Store and Game Pass. You would think that they were crosswalk, but just like, it's yeah,
Doesn't happen.
yeah.
Yeah. Those things bother me, because there's no stipulation that it does or doesn't work. You just assume same game, it's gonna fucking work, and that's not always the case. So
Yeah,
yay, different ecosystems.
and don't even talk about like the Xbox version versus the PC version. Because like, if you
Yeah,
own
that's a whole
both,
other territory.
right, then it's, yeah.
Yep.
will often appear one way on the Xbox console, even though it's the same title.
Yep.
You're
Same
you are
title.
licensed to play it both places. It comes across looking one way on the Xbox and a different way on PC.
Yeah, yeah. Just be careful with your versions, and even if they're crossplay, sometimes it's only certain servers that are crossplay, and I learned that as well. So it's like I joined the server, and I'm like, okay, I don't see it on fucking PC. Where is it? Where is it? Oh, there's crossplay servers. Okay, then you go and you filter on that. So very very weird things, and I guess if you're wrapped up in one ecosystem, you wouldn't worry about it. But I know that a lot of PC gamers have Xbox and have Steam and Game Pass and Steam and something else. Steam's going to be around forever. It just seems weird to not have them work, but it is what it is.
Yeah, man, and I was listening to something last week, and I think this impacted me as well, but where there's versions across the Microsoft Store, Steam, and Stadia, and each of them like
Right.
do
One
different
more.
things. So yeah, it's a weird place. Yeah, man. On my part, I have been playing World of Warships most recently. Actually, just got off that tonight before I jumped on. It's always a good time. I often talk about wargaming.net. One of the things that I really like the most about their games is the fact that for their premium account, you can buy in as little as like 1 day, 3 days, 7 days. 7 days is like $5. So I'm on a 7 day premium account now for $5. I probably won't even play it the full 7 days. It's sometimes a little risky because you get hooked because you hit tier rewards that will then add on to your premium Game Pass time or whatever.
Oh.
So you buy 7 days for like $5, and then like by the third day they're like giving you free days, and then you're like, should I keep playing to get my value out of this? I don't know. So, but it's been a good time. So as with most games, I'm late to the party on this. I'm just now getting into the tier 5 ships. I have noticed that as I go in to play PvP, matchmaking is a lot faster now because a lot more people are playing PvP at the tier 5 and above level, whereas tier 4 and below, people are not as quick to jump into PvP matches. They tend to play co-op more. Now that I'm up at tier 5, matchmaking does not take all day. Many a time at tier 4 and below, I would jump into a random battle, wait for matchmaking. It would take more than 1 minute or 2 minutes, and I would just exit out of the queue because I was tired of waiting. So that's been a pleasant change. I have been working my Japanese tech tree, so I have a tier 5 Japanese battleship that I've been working on, trying to grind through and level it up. It is that particular ship, which I think is the Congo, is as is the case with a lot of things in gaming. It's one of the most beautiful things in the world. It's one of the worst things in the world. Nothing. Very few things in gaming exceed the experience of like you just let loose one salvo and hit a destroyer and it's done. And it goes down. I took out a cruiser with an incredibly long shot like just tonight. And it just those
Nice.
2 rounds hit it and it was done, and that won the match. I've had some of the highest scoring, highest damage matches that I've had ever on the game. Playing that ship. But by the same token, I came around a corner toe to toe with the destroyer. It was in close. There was nowhere to maneuver. It's an incredibly slow, fat pig of a ship, and I just got jabbed in close to death and quickly destroyed. Taken apart and destroyed. So over there trying to help out a teammate, and it's just like, well, I shouldn't have followed you. So that happens too, but it's a cool experience. Continues to always look good. I don't get into all the crazy kind of weird edge stuff where there's just a lot of things that are there for people who are career World of Warships people. And of course, like we mentioned on Destiny 2, I don't get into that. Although I did get into there have been campaigns, and they've been listed that way for the longest time, and I've never been able to get into them. I think Tier 5 is where you're first able to actually play them. There's so much content there that just is like Tier 5 and above, and I'm like, well, what the heck are you supposed to do with the game from Tier 1 to Tier 4? Just play co-op? But I made it through that, and now I can play through the campaigns, which are really campaigns, combat missions, all the stuff, except for the weekly operation, are all just tasks. Very similar to your daily challenges in Call of Duty, where you can select ones, you can reject challenges and replace them with something else that you think is more reasonable or more suited to how you're playing. So they're similar to that. So they're score a certain amount of damage, get first contact in 5 matches, that kind of thing. So they're really just 3 additional. So you have combat missions, which already had a lot of those tasks, but then you have these campaigns, which give you some history and background, and that's part of the hook of World of Warships 2, is you get to sit and kind of read all this information about past fighting ships and naval warfare and things from World War II. So that part definitely interests me. I probably don't get as much time or don't spend as much time diving into that stuff as I would like. But really, the campaigns are just additional tasks that you put onto your plate. Which is fine, whatever. It doesn't hurt to get into that and have more pathways to other rewards as well. So like I said, I've been working my Japanese warship tech tree, but probably tomorrow I'm going to start working my German tech tree. So it is.
Do you get more, like when you work these tech trees? Do you get more advanced weaponry, or do you get like advanced armor? I have never played any of these games. I've heard of them, and like World of Tanks and World of Warships. So I'm looking at some gameplay, and it actually looks pretty interesting. It almost reminds me of like Sudden Strike or those kinds of games.
Well, this is where, again, I will probably get some people angry at me. So as far as I'm concerned, World of Warships is a MOBA.
Yeah.
It is definitely not a simulation. Just because I right or wrong, I associate simulations with it requiring me to have a specialized controller. So you don't have to have a specialized controller with World of Warships. It plays fine with keyboard or mouse. And I don't mean like it plays fine with keyboard or mouse like the people who play flight sims with keyboard or mouse, which is just a crazy concept. Like, no, flight sims you're supposed to play with a flight control system and a HOTAS. But World of Warships just plays like a MOBA. Each different type of ship is a different class. There are variants among the classes, and you need to apply each, in the technically correct way, tactically correct way, in order to win a match, which is just like a MOBA. But what happens is, within each ship, there are 3 to 5 pieces of equipment that you can upgrade. And so you have to upgrade each of those pieces of equipment before the next tier ship in the tech tree becomes available. In addition to that, each ship also has consumables and then equipment upgrades. So you don't have to do the equipment upgrades, but it's probably prudent that you do. It unlocks, it makes you more resilient to, so your magazines won't catch on fire as much, and so your steering gear is less likely to get damaged. And so you can upgrade your key systems and update your consumables. But then, unlocking, essentially climbing up the tech tree part, within the ship itself, the ship model itself, of advancing your equipment is how you get to the next ship tier. And then there are tiers and branches. So you may start in a destroyer, and it may, if you follow that thread all the way through, it may max you out in the destroyer ship type. But then at some point, it may branch onto a model that's like cruisers or a battleship, and you can go off down that branch as well. So again,
looks like fun. Looks like you can get into some serious shit. That's nuts. Lots of ships shooting each other. And then what happens when you die? You die. You start over. Your ship isn't like permanently damaged or anything, or.
Well, this is one of the reasons why this kind of game appeals to me, because I'm very particular about like multiplayer games having certain design elements. So the one of the big things to me is when you are killed in a match, you can get out of the match with no penalty. So unlike Rainbow Six, where you're kind of compelled to hang around in a match, right, even after you've died, just to be the guy on the cameras and giving everybody else intel, unless you play Terrorist Hunt, this game doesn't do that to you. So if you go into a match and you get killed, if you go into a PvP match and you get killed, you could bounce out and go back to the lobby and sign right up for your next random battle, which means it significantly reduces the amount of idle time that you would normally spend in a game, which is a thing that really bugged me with Rainbow Six, and is one of the reasons I bounced off of it. But yeah.
Nice. Yeah, it
Yeah,
sounds
and
like
then-
it respects your time.
Yeah, and then your penalty for that is like your ship, the ship you were in, if it got destroyed in that battle, it does not become available until that battle's over. So let's say the battle goes 10 minutes, you get killed at the 5-minute point. You can exit the battle and go back to the lobby, but that particular ship won't be available until that battle's over 5 minutes later.
Though,
Yeah, but you can
to.
I have 45 ships, so if one goes down, all those aren't ones that I want to use, because a lot of those are tier 1 ships or whatever. But yeah, absolutely. Typically in a night, I typically pick like the ship that I'm trying to work to get to the next thing in the tech tree, and the ship that is one behind it. I never
spares on hand.
Yeah, I never have such a bad sequence of events that I have to go to a third ship.
Your level 1 ships.
So I've been playing that. In addition to that, I've been playing Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War.
You don't say.
I don't know what's going on with that thing, man. I am at Prestige 100, at Prestige 2 100. I pushed through to get that last night. Was using up my tokens, and I was like, I think I can go ahead and cap 100 before I wrap this weekend up, and then I'll be fine to put it down for a while and go on to something else. I can't remember if I mentioned this last time on this show or not, but I have gotten over the notion that using keyboard and mouse on console is somehow dishonorable, and I've been playing with keyboard and mouse. So I had used it on the Xbox Series S because Microsoft has long touted its compatibility with gaming keyboards. But it is also compatible with keyboard and mouse on the PlayStation 5, which is what I was playing on the last few days. So I hooked up keyboard and mouse to that. I had to change a few things. So for anybody who's kept up with my social media or channels or stuff before, you may know one thing I do with my gaming mice is I put if they're gaming mice at a gaming station that I use for really intense PvP, which is pretty rare because I'm just not a big PvP player, and when I play PvP, I'm not a sweat or a tryhard. But Call of Duty is a different thing, so one of the modifications that I do with mice that I'm using for that is I put non-skid on them to help me get a better grip. And so I had done that last year while playing Modern Warfare. I had taken that off of all of my mice because I was like, but it's right back on now for playing Cold War. And the other thing I did was when I move the consoles over to, I mentioned this, a streaming station. These workstations don't quite have as much real estate, desktop real estate, as some of my larger workstations do. So, and the mouse I was using over there was a big, chonky, Red Dragon mouse. And so I actually ordered a few smaller mobile gaming mice, which I used to regularly have on hand because when I used to travel a lot, I used to have, gaming laptops. I still have gaming laptops, but I don't travel as much anymore. And when I do now, I am much more likely to just take my Stadia controller or the Nintendo Switch. So I ordered several mobile gaming mice just to try those out again with the consoles. So again, I could get a much larger range of movement within the same amount of desktop space. And they definitely help. They're definitely better. I definitely played better on the mobile gaming mice than I did on the full-size gaming mouse. So I'll be continuing, when I do play mouse and keyboard, which I won't do all the time, we'll be continuing to use that. So ordered a couple from Razer that I haven't played with yet, but I ordered one other. The one that I used was one from TechNet, and then I ordered a Vixing mobile gaming mouse, which I'll be trying out the Vixing once it gets here. I didn't use it this weekend, but the other thing I got to help me out with my Call of Duty is and I said that I was going to do this for a while. I went ahead and got some grips and a silicone wrap for my DualSense.
Nice.
Now, I'm sure there are some people out there who will go, well, that's a sacrilege. You shouldn't cover up such a beautiful piece of equipment. But I'm like, look, by the time the 7-year life cycle of the PlayStation 5 is over, I'm sure I'll have like 10 flipping DualSense controllers. And so,
I'm sure I will too. I have Xbox controllers for days.
Right. It was just worth it to just go ahead and save my thumbs and tendons in my fingers by finally getting some silicone and a wrap. This is probably the least amount of tolerance that I've seen in analog stick grips. I actually, to get these suckers on, usually what I do is I put one edge, one lip around one side of the analog stick, and then pull it over, and then I'm able to fold the other lip down. But this thing, man, I hate to say it, but it was like putting on a condom, and like I had to like take these little grips, which are very small. Like if you could see how big these things are in comparison to my hands, I had to get a fingernail in there and actually turn them inside out, and then put it on
put
top.
Them on and like.
Yeah, and then roll it over the tip, right? So that's it took some doing. Yeah, so I can tell you that's never coming off. But that's
you're practicing safe controlling.
Right.
That's good. That's good.
Right. Contraceptive gaming. Man. So, but yeah, it was pretty awesome. Oh, and I added Hardpoint to the rotation this time. I had been playing only TDM.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yep.
And Free for All, but
I like Hardpoint.
Yeah, I really liked it. I got smoked the first time out, and I was like,
hectic,
wow,
man.
Yeah,
it can be hectic.
I was just trying to where's the hard point? Am I on the hard point? Am I not on the hard point? And then I kept getting like the super sweat maps. Like I got Crossroads and Stick in Nuketown for hard point, and I was just like, wow.
Hardpoint in Nuketown is just a clusterfuck. Yeah, it's just bombs everywhere, man.
Right. People just
Crossroads. Yeah, they're just chugging stuff. Yeah. Or claymores everywhere. Oh man, yeah. Nuketown can be. I feel like if you have some momentum, you get going and you get in a good pattern. But sometimes I would just die. Just the entire match, I felt like all I did was die over and over again.
Well, I got to play Hero a lot on those maps because I was working my LMG, so I had.
Nice.
The RPD LMG and played with a couple variants of that from the Armory, and so those were cases where in fact one of my player of the game snapshots that I got was somebody popped smoke and I just let loose with the LMG like through the cloud of smoke and like killed like 3 people. Because it doesn't matter that you can see I have 100 rounds in the thing. Right.
So, I'm hitting something.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So it was pretty awesome. And again, if you're trying to get kills and stuff, then that helps because people are all going to be clustered in a small area.
Yeah, it's very true. There's certain areas you can just light up,
right?
Spray and pray.
So that covers the good stuff. I mentioned that I'm going to go ahead and do this here. I mentioned that we were going to talk about files and storage and store and problems. And again, playing Call of Duty this weekend reminded me once again that I'll be so happy when cross-gen is a thing of the past. So I play Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War. I have played the single-player campaign on the PlayStation 5. On the Xbox and PC, I didn't play the single-player campaign. I had already completed on PlayStation 5 by the time I played it on those other platforms. On those other platforms, I haven't even bothered downloading the campaign files. on PlayStation 5, a good buddy of mine who's also a streamer asked me to play Warzone this weekend. And it was all kind of casual. I was just joking beforehand. I was like, oh, I don't really play Warzone. And, I did blah, blah, blah. And then I said, but yeah, sure, I'll try and join you guys. And I can play Warzone for a little bit. And then I'll go do my TDM FFA thing. So I come down and I try to play it. I hit play. He goes, it's not loaded. And I'm like, oh, hold on a second. I thought with the Season 1 update, you guys integrated everything into the launcher. I thought Warzone was the common piece now. I thought when you downloaded the game, it would pull down Warzone, because I figured, well, that would then make sense. If you're going to pull Cold War and Modern Warfare together, it would make sense to make Warzone the common piece that everybody has to pull down. That way, whether they're a Modern Warfare person or a Cold War person, they have this one piece in the middle that can glue them all together.
Right.
That's not the case. Warzone still is a discrete application, which thoroughly frustrated me, because I thought it had been integrated. So when on the PlayStation 5 at least, when you go to launch Warzone, it's not any different than it was at launch. You go to launch it, it starts a countdown timer. On my unit, you can actually hear it. It shows a Cold War splash screen, but you can actually hear the PlayStation 5 desktop music playing in the background.
Oh, weird. Okay.
Like you're back out on the cross media bar.
Yeah.
And then it launches the Warzone game. So now, that would be if that worked, which it doesn't. So there's absolutely no point, at least in my experience this weekend, in launching Cold War, playing it, and then trying to move over to Warzone. Because what happens is it hangs up, it doesn't transition, it just sits there and says joining match the whole time. You wind up having to shut it down. When you go to the cross media bar and you bring up the bottom menu to close go to the switcher to close the app, it's not Cold War that's running. It's Modern Warfare. So you have to shut that app down, and then you have to start up Modern Warfare / Warzone as a separate app to get into Warzone. So that's once you have everything loaded. Imagine the hell I went through having everything loaded except Warzone, trying to get flippin' Warzone onto my system. So Warzone doesn't show up as a PlayStation 5 app. It only shows up as a PlayStation 4 app. Then when you go to download it, it doesn't tell you everything that it's downloading. So of course I'm sitting there looking at the thing and I'm like, this thing better not pull down PlayStation. This thing better not pull down the PS4 version of Cold War. Because I don't want that on the system, because whenever I launch Cold War, I want to know that it's the PS5 version. Which,
right.
Before they put up this new software update that tells you, I was like, the only way I'm assured that it's the PS5 version when I launch it is to not have the PS4 version. So I spent a lot of time getting all the PS4 stuff off of my box. Now to load Warzone, I have to load this thing that's labeled as the PS4 version of Modern Warfare / Warzone. So I pulled that down. I think that's all it is, but I spent like 30 minutes going back and forth before I downloaded anything, trying to sort, filter, get through the store, do all types of gymnastics to get to a point.
Pain in the ass.
It was not
that
pleasant.
Sounds like a real pain in the ass.
It was not pleasant.
Yeah,
and then it's another 50
like
gig like download, like when you download it. Yeah, it's not. Yeah, so I guess the disappointing thing out of all of that was I thought when the Season 1 update dropped, and I went into Cold War and I saw Cold War, Warzone, Modern Warfare, I just thought that everything had been integrated. I figured Modern Warfare itself was a discrete app, but I really thought Warzone had been integrated, and it's not. It's still, you just have two apps that are last generation apps that are integrated in the launcher for the PlayStation 5 version that still shut down the if you try and hop over to them, they shut down the PlayStation 5 version and try and open the PS4 version. And like I said, at least in the case of Warzone, that doesn't even work for me. So
yeah, that seems like hot garbage.
Right. Yeah. I don't know why they bothered to integrate the launchers then. They should have just left them as discrete.
Yeah, as discrete apps.
Yeah. They should look. And I get it. I understand that, one of the big hooplas and the rah-rahs is that now Cold War content is in Warzone.
Right.
But from a user-friendliness perspective, like, you would have still accomplished the same thing if you would have just left that as a discrete PlayStation 4 app and just told people, hey, when you launch this app, it's going to pull over or it recognizes from your account your Cold War stuff.
Right.
Like, I would just rather have a discrete PS5 icon for Cold War and a PS4 icon for Modern Warfare. And I would just rather, hey, if you want to play Warzone with your Black Ops content, just open up Modern Warfare and go into the Warzone mode. But, like, they've mashed them all together.
I don't like the meshing. And it's just, it's not like you said, it's just a shortcut to the other game. And that to me is weird. Like, I don't know how they could have done it better, except leave it by itself. At least with the Modern Warfare, you got multiplayer and Warzone in the same app because you didn't switch between it. So you could play regular multiplayer and then switch over to the Warzone. And it was just another, tabbed menu in this. It didn't launch Warzone. It was already loaded. So here you got this whole immersion breaking, reloading of a fucking game every time you want to swap back and forth. And that bothers me a bit. And I think it's probably a limitation, on their end, because otherwise they would have cooked it in together, I'm sure.
Well, the thing is that what is interesting from a software development perspective too is that this whole time I'd kind of been giving Activision the benefit of the doubt that I'm like, oh, I'm sure they'll figure this out. But what it tells me is that through the travails of because I don't know what this, I don't know what Call of Duty this was supposed to be this year, but it was not supposed to be Black Ops. It should have been a Sledgehammer game. The last thing Sledgehammer did was Call of Duty WW2, which I personally feel was a great game, at least for single player. I didn't play the multiplayer. Sledgehammer had beef with Raven. They couldn't figure it out, so they brought Treyarch in as like the big brother and told Treyarch to do Black Ops. But in the meantime, they had launched Warzone shortly after Modern Warfare. And I had thought the whole time, I'd given them the benefit of doubt that there was a roadmap to go from Modern Warfare to Warzone to whatever the next thing was that pulled at least the Warzone piece together. But I guess between short fusing and bringing Treyarch in and telling them to roll Black Ops, what it was apparent to me is that in winter-spring of 2020, as that decision was being made, there was no plan to integrate all this stuff and get it all together in one package. At least not one that they were able to execute on.
Yeah, they definitely failed on that. I thought the integration with Modern Warfare was good, but yeah, I thought the Cold War was going to be better. It honestly shocked me when I hit Warzone and it launched another game, and I hadn't seen that since since Crackdown 3, and that was jarring. It's just like that's so fucking weird, man. Why would you do that? But it is what it is. I'd rather just launch a whole separate app.
Well, right, and that's exactly the kind of thing it reminds you. It reminds you of like when you used to buy a new game and they would say, and you buy this new game and you get like the old game for free if you don't have it. And then you would see it as a menu item in the launcher, but then when you'd launch it, it would just shut everything down and like go to this complete like that's what it feels like. And I'm
it's weird. It's not a good look. I don't know.
Right.
And that's just me bitching, but you got this brand new hardware, brand new consoles, and you got a next gen game, and it launches a shortcut. Yep. That makes you go through all the fucking shit anyway, man.
Right.
I don't want to go through the created with Unreal Engine and all that. No, right. No, I just want to boot into the menu and get going.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. That's the hoodwink that bugs me, and I'm like, I could deal with a lot of things, but don't try and bamboozle me. And I'm like, so if you don't have them integrated, don't lie to me and show them to me in a launcher as if they're all together in one app. Like, if they're discrete, if they're still separate, don't slap the stinking launcher together. This isn't a web app, right?
Right.
It's not a hyperlink. Like,
Yeah, I'm trying
like,
to think of other games that might do that, and I'm thinking, I mean, even Master Chief Collection just launches the fucking game. I mean, there's no
yeah,
relaunching of a game. I don't
no,
know. I don't know of any other thing that does this, and it's sloppy, like you said. It is literally launching the other game from scratch. It's
yeah,
not even coded to skip, all the unnecessary bullshit,
right,
which they could do.
right.
So
Yeah, it's
yeah,
like
it's
you're
weird.
launching Modern Warfare from scratch. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
it feels like it. And look, I mean, I know they're more complex, but like the way it feels like some stinking like Nintendo or Super Nintendo online stuff. Like it feels like
Yes.
on the Switch when you go to that like NES Super NES arcade
Yep,
and like you
yep.
launch something and it's like it shuts everything down and like brings up the whole like I'm like brings up the
Dude,
whole
dude,
emulator.
so super quick. I remember me and my buddy were playing Joe Montana's football on the Sega CD. Sega CD, all right? We rented it. And we were playing, and then there was this segment called Ask Joe. And you could ask Joe Montana for advice, right? And we're like, sick, let's do this. So you ask Joe, and then it proceeds to load. This is a Sega CD. Proceeds to load for, I shit you not, like 3 to 4 minutes. The CD is just queuing and loading, and and you feel like the shit is crashing, and all it is was like a 15-second FMV sequence of Joe Montana saying the most vague shit, and like you should go long for the Hail Mary, and that was it. And I'm like, oh my god, that was so not worth it. That was awful. Like we got up, we're like, all right, did it crash? We're mid game. Like what's happening? But it's that kind of cheeseball shit. Like some intern said, "Yeah, hey, I did it. I integrated it. We're good." You know, like what? No, you didn't, man. Nobody checked your work.
Yeah,
But yeah, fun
remind,
times.
reminds me of PC games when you used to get to a certain point of the game and it would like stop and throw up a pause screen and tell you to load the
Yeah,
second
disc
CD.
two. Or the second floppy.
Right. All right,
Oh
let's
my
go ahead
god.
and wind the Wayback Machine to
Let's do it.
May of 2011. Give me a second for the sound effect.
Get your hands out of there. Wash up before dinner.
All right. Uh, Wayback Machine, May 2011. 9 years ago, roughly speaking. Man, what was this? Was the last? Actually, kind of the last. Oh yeah, the last like 2 or 3 years of the last console generation. So, theoretically, the best games were coming out at this point. I don't think we had heard about PlayStation 4 or Xbox One. I think we would find out about those like a year later. But we were probably at this point definitely hearing that there was the next thing after. I know during the Xbox 360 life cycle, there were all these rumors that Microsoft was never going to launch another console again. But fools will be fools. So what were you playing here in May of 2011?
So I look back and I saw everything that was kind of out and about during that time, and I am almost positive I was probably playing Dead Space 2. And I say that because I absolutely adore Dead Space 1, and it's one of my all-time favorite games. 1 and 2, 3 so much. But two Dead Space 2 is right up there with like Mass Effect 2 for me. And I remember playing it, and I was so happy that it wasn't like a spin-off, that it was you were Isaac again, and you were, waking up like a few years after the whole incident on the Ishimura or whatever the ship's name was. And I'm like, all right, that's enough for me. You got me day one. I got it. I was playing it on PC. I really did enjoy Dead Space 2. There was lots of quality of life fixes from Dead Space 1. However, like many things in horror and I was kind of the novelty had kind of worn off, and it definitely Dead Space 1 is in my eyes the better of the games, just because maybe it was newer. Um, but Dead Space 2 was just a great game, and I'm looking at like all the review scores, and yeah, so that was like a 90 plus game. This is when EA was a thing, and they were actually publishing decent games. But Visceral did this one as well, and they were just banging back then. Dead Space had a good vibe. It was creepy. It was everything a horror space game should be, and I enjoyed the shit out of Dead Space 1 and 2. And I actually finished up Dead Space 3 couple years back, actually. More recently, I held off because I was like, and I was glad because it was like, I don't know what they did to Dead Space, but it's funny how reminiscent it is to Mass Effect 3. It's like, I don't know what they have like this perfect, game, and then they just decide to fuck it all up is really what they do. Like, I don't know, like, why'd you have to do it? Would just take the same game and don't touch it, put it on another ship, call it good. Everybody's gonna love it. But yeah, Dead Space 2, I definitely played and I enjoyed, and there's some scenes that are just haunting in Dead Space and Dead Space 2. The first time you encounter certain creatures and stuff that have stuck with me. So that was definitely, I was enjoying the shit out of Dead Space 2 in 2011. And again, I was playing it on PC, so I was a PC snob back then. But I'm sure a lot of people, we're playing it on consoles. I don't know if it was big. I don't think Mass Effect was big in consoles and Dead Space, but maybe I'm wrong. I believe Mass Effect came out on consoles first. But I feel like the PC space is where most people experience this, but maybe I'm wrong. I should look up a player count of who, where it was completed on most, but
Yeah, I'm not sure. I definitely associate Mass Effect with being a console title. No, and I have Mass Effect and Mass Effect 2. I think I have the whole trilogy on PC. That's where I played it, but I definitely think of it as something that started on console. But that's not entirely different from games that will come out on console, and I'll look at them and say, man, I'll that game feels like it should be on PC, and I'll be happy to
right.
wait. I didn't wait for Destiny 2, but I played it. But man, I didn't pre-order it on consoles. But with the PC version, pre-ordered that. I was like, yeah, no question. Like, this is a game that deserves, will probably play best on PC. So I don't need to wait before I go ahead and plunk money down.
What were you doing in 2011, my man?
Yeah, in 2011, I was playing. I put Xbox 360 down here. I shouldn't have. I was playing Dirt 3, and I think so. So of course, in fall of 2010, I gave up my Xbox after the fourth Red Ring of Death. So I was off the Xbox platform. But I pretty much have always had wheel and pedals for PC, and I'm a big racing game guy, racing sim guy. And so I think what happened was I got Dirt 3, and it had the Games for Windows Live DRM wrapped into it. And so
Yeah.
I played it sporadically because I just didn't really like that whole experience. And it was a goofy thing where it was like sold on Steam, but it had the Games for Windows Live thing around it, which sometimes I could get that working, very often I couldn't. And so I think it was a thing that was in my library for years. And so I was playing it in May of 2011, but really, quite honestly, I didn't really come back to that game until the Enhanced Edition or Complete Edition or whatever came out few years later, where they had removed all of the... And I mean, they removed all the Games for Windows stuff through two efforts. So the first time that they said that it was removed, it wasn't fully removed. And then later, maybe a year after that, it was truly completely excavated. You just didn't see it at all. So the first time they said it was removed, it would still pop, and you would have the option to sign in or not. But if you chose not to sign in, it would frequently be very janky in getting started, so it would just easier if you just went ahead and signed in. But then it was the second iteration that was completely out. And to be quite honest, I wasn't, being a sim person, I'm definitely somebody who, I appreciate the dirt games, but I am definitely lean more heavily towards the dirt rally games that are much more so simulations than arcade driving games. Again, and I love an arcade driving game. I'm a huge Need for Speed fan, so I love both of those game types. But Dirt 3, but one of my biggest things in driving games is I don't like being forced to drift. And so I don't mind if you have drifting in the game, but in a game like Need for Speed Underground, where they tied drifting events to the progression model. I think it was Underground 2. I think Underground and Underground 2 did it differently. I think Underground maybe had it. One of the two had it the right way, where it was the events were in there, but you could complete the game without doing the drifting events. But one of those two games forced you to do the drifting events to complete the game, and I did not appreciate that. Because I just don't look, at the end of the day, my purest form of racing that I love is wheel-to-wheel, mano-a-mano, you against the AI, trying to see who finishes first. I can't stand the racing modes where it's points, and it's like accumulate like 300,000 points, by the time the timer runs out to advance to the next stage. And so I didn't like the Dirt 3. So Dirt 3 unfortunately, rest his soul, Colin McRae had died. And so I think for a version or two, there was no real personality behind the Dirt games. And then they got Dave Mirra I think it was Dave Mirra, or I gotta look the name up now. Now I'm forgetting the name, or maybe it was Ken something or other. But it was the Gymkhana guy. So he was the guy who had gotten big on YouTube by doing all of like these crazy drifting stunts and everything in these rally cars. And so they had pulled that into to the Dirt franchise. And so I just didn't like the events that you were forced to play to complete like a pyramid, because that's how the game was kind of oriented into these pyramids. But you had to complete those in order to progress the game. Again, didn't really like them at first. When I came back to the game years later, I eventually got to a point where I kind of figured out how to make them work with wheel and pedals. And I didn't mind them then. I was still bothered that they were a forced requirement. But I didn't feel like they were complete silliness like I did the first time.
Sure.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, the Dirt games. Yeah, Dave Mirra was BMX, I think. I'm trying to think.
Yeah, I can't remember. I can't remember the personality who's associated
drifting.
with
Drifting is not my favorite thing in those games either.
Right.
I don't like to be. Well, I don't like to be forced to do anything really to advance. But it is what it is.
And the Gymkhana thing takes it to another level, right? That's the
right.
Ken Block. That was the name of the guy.
Ken Block.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was Gymkhana, which is just this. Drifting was a thing, but Gymkhana is something that's like uber drifting with jumps and obstacle courses and all this kind of stuff. And here's a review from a user right now. Love the rallies and racing, hate the Gymkhana, right? Because it just felt like this like unnecessary task that was thrown up in your face, that tried to force you to find fun in something that just there's going to be a certain type of racer and certain type of gamer who doesn't like that content, and like I said, I didn't appreciate being forced to play through it. So
yeah, I can see that.
All right, man. Let's go ahead and wrap this thing up with current controversies.
Let's go.
And you fail.
Okay, so current controversies, not a lot this week. The only thing I came across was interesting take by someone, and I think I realized, I don't log into Twitter a lot, but I think I realized tonight the person hadn't responded. But the person posted really kind of a little bit of throwing shade at Ubisoft, because apparently there was an interview a few years ago when the Division 2 was coming out, and the person had said, the game was absolutely not political, they weren't trying to make a statement, and the interviewer had been trying to corner them into saying that they were trying to make a political statement by placing the game in DC. And, this created like 100-something, 600, 700 people jumping into a thread, in varying degrees of agony and whatnot. And throughout the thread, this recurring theme came up about politics in games. And I'll just go ahead and loop all the things that come along with that, which is typically inclusiveness in games, diversity in games, etc., etc., etc. And, I've said it before, so I'll just say it real quickly, but, like it or not, it's at varying levels and degrees, but games are art. They're created by creatives. Now, they could be art in the spectrum of a Michael Bay blockbuster things exploding on screen, and they can be art house art of things like a cinematic experience like The Last of Us 2, and they can be, I should say that's art house, that's kind of more like the middle ground, and then they can be arty like Celeste, or What Became of Edith Finch, or Spiritfarer, or The Pathless, things of that nature. So they run the full gamut. But this is the whole point is, and it's a weird, it's not that much of a creative leap. If you've ever written a book, or tried to write a book, written a story, I've shot a short film. Probably not a lot of people shot a short film. But look, anything that you've done that's of a creative nature, doggone well, and you listen to creatives, right? Lots of these people are driven to try and present experiences that are difficult experiences, right? A lot of photographers, you look at wartime correspondents and photographers for magazines, many of them seek out to take pictures that are hard for people to look at. Like, that is the creative shtick. It's so the whole thing about creatives is that many of them are driven to present material that are difficult for people to digest, right? Hard to face, hard to own up to, hard to think about. Like, there are things that are supposed to challenge, they drive to create things that are challenging because they think that by making people think that is a mark, or that's a creative bend. People flipped out about, Cyberpunk and I think one other game, and I mentioned at the time, I was like, look, say whatever you want to about CD Projekt Red, and I know there's a bunch of other stuff going on, but so just talk about the transgender thing. Like, look, they're the first ones trying to address that topic in a video game. Like, they're probably not going to get it right because it's hard, right? Yeah. It's hard for me to understand the differences between, I still don't get it, the differences in theoretical concept and philosophy between gender and sex. That's a difficult concept to wrap my head around. A difficult concept to even get to an understanding of how someone would consider those as two separate things, because our society has historically been wrapped around the axle about considering those things synonymous. So the first creative that tries to break that down and present it as an experience is most likely to get it wrong.
Oh, yeah.
They're only going to get it right through iterations, right? But the whole point of this is that the notion that these things are not, games shouldn't be political. Well, that's stupid, right. That's like saying movies, and I say that it's stupid because what happens is you can consider them two different things. You can consider, does a piece of art or does a creative endeavor or does a piece of entertainment address political events or topics, and you can break it down to, does a thing try and make a statement. That separation has become completely diluted in today's crucible of hate that is Twitter, and there is no separation between those two. So if you're going to create that type of environment, fine, but then to think that a movie, a TV show, a video game, a poem, whatever, a book is never going to address political topics or content, never going to address topics of social unrest, that is stupid, dumb, and ignorant. And so, like, look, if that's what you want, then I don't know what to tell you. Play Apex, like play games that are.
There's probably political shit in the bios of the Apex characters.
Right,
I mean,
right.
Even in. I don't have a topic, so I'm just gonna expand on yours. Even in everything. I mean, in fiction, we can't separate politics and social issues. They're always gonna be there, man. And I don't know what the fuck you'd play or watch that doesn't have some social issues, some context to politics in some country somewhere, right? I mean, I'm usually in my US bubble of politics, but I mean, there's politics that I have no idea about. I'm upset that these companies don't get more political, because I think there's a lot of emotion that they could harness in there, bad or good. I was disappointed in Far Cry 5 and how they kind of beat around the bush with that whole plot, and they could have went much farther, and they could have pissed off a bunch of fucking people. But you know what, I bet you they'd still sell games. The Division was political, and I thought the first one did a decent job at trying to stay kinda sorta neutral. But even then, I mean, these are things that are all tied in to social issues, gender equality, the LGBTQ. And I mean, they're there. Last of Us touched on some of it, and that pissed people off, and Far Cry 5 pissed people off by not touching enough on certain things, so you can't really fucking win. But I don't know what the hell you'd play or watch or read that isn't some of the best things have been political, some of the best movies, some of the best stories, some of the best, I feel like video games are still in their infancy and are treading this line real carefully, whereas movie makers have gone there and back. I mean, we have seen movies like Red State and all these other movies that just go out there and say, flop, here it is, like, I don't give a fuck if you like it or not. Here's my movie. This is what I thought. This is my creative. And you're supposed to have that freedom, right? I mean, you're supposed to, as an artist, you're supposed to be able to express yourself. Otherwise, you just fucking paint fruit and and talk about how the pavement is black. Like, what? So yes, I completely agree that it's ignorant and disingenuous to just say that games should stay in their lane, or that is their lane, man. I mean, it's imitating life. The Last of Us 2 is a real game, right? Based off, it's not the characters are human, and the plague is real, and the virus it takes place in what, Pacific Northwest. I mean, all of it's real. So yeah, you're gonna have real humans with real human things going on. I'm sorry that it offends you. Don't buy the fucking game. Move on. Play Apex, and then read some of the bios. And I'm sure that somebody escaped apartheid in South Africa. Holy shit! There's politics for you. So yeah, no, I completely agree, and it pisses me off.
Right. I mean, I don't know. Play Peggle or Luminous or Tetris or something.
There
Maybe.
you go, like Bubble Pop or
Right.
fucking. I mean, even then, there's not enough colors that represent, all the different colors of the Peggle people, or
Right.
it's just you could go on and on. It's totally ridiculous that
Right.
people want a separation, and I think it's just because it's hypocrisy. They
Yeah.
won't see it if it's them.
Yeah. Don't
Like.
don't be offended at a game presenting a perspective, right?
Right.
Because you disagree in the real world. You disagree with that philosophy.
It's a game.
Right.
It's a game. It's
Right.
not, nobody's forcing you to play it. I think this goes back even further than that when, like even people getting upset with being able to play a female in a certain, role when it was traditionally male, or this certain person is black, and of course in this region there weren't black people, and that's not authentic. It's a fucking game, man. Like, don't play it, or maybe don't create that character. I mean, some of these are even optional and people get pissed off about, so like in Cyberpunk, you could create a dude with a penis.
Right.
Have at it.
Yeah.
Dude's got a penis, he's a dude.
And,
Go.
And it's funny, coming from a background of, having reviewed, like, every aspect of nerd. Well, I won't say every aspect, because I don't do, like, action figures, but having reviewed, like, lots of different aspects of nerdism, right? Having spent time as a movie reviewer, a TV reviewer, a comic book reviewer, like, it has run across all of those things. Like, people get involved with something, feel like they own it from like, you never own a thing you pay a license for in terms of its creative foundation. You are never, ever, ever, I don't care how much money you've spent or how much you've invested, you are not part of the creative team, right? Even, look, and I love these guys, but even the ones that tell you, if you, like, Chris Roberts with Star Citizen, and it's got its own problems and things, but Chris Roberts is like, if you've become an investor, then you're one of us. I'm like, you're not. Because if that development team decides there's something you want from a creative aspect that doesn't fit with their notion of, like, the universe, they're not going to do it, right? People who bought into Apex and have spent 1,000 hours in Apex and are like, oh, well, I think they should just give me stuff because I play. Like, Apex said they're not doing solos, right? That is antithetical to their design concept for their game, so they're not going to do it, or at least they didn't for a certain...
I have the Collector's Supreme Edition signed by all the developers,
right?
And I spent $3,000 on in-game shit. Like, listen to me.
Right.
Incel Lord 97 on Reddit. I mean, it's stupid. It's stupid.
Right. And so all of them go through this thing where they feel like they own something, and I'm like, look, there's no entitlement, there's no obligation, there's no requirement that the developer makes the 33rd iteration of Assassin's Creed for you, right? If you don't like iteration 33, skip it and come back to Assassin's Creed 34, right? I'm like, you don't have to play, you're not entitled to play any game. You're not entitled to play every issue of Call of Duty. You don't like the political statements in Modern Warfare and the things that they deal with, which great Scott, have you not watched a freaking episode of Jack Ryan or any, like, Tom Clancy, like, thriller? Like, if you've ever been to a Tom Clancy movie, which is about nothing but politics, and say games, TV, movies are not supposed to be like, I just don't get it. Like,
honestly,
what are you thinking?
I don't think, and I'm gonna tread on territory that would get me in trouble, but I don't think it's this not political thing. I think it's not their politics, and I think as society gets more and more, dare I say it, progressive, then people that don't have those viewpoints start to try to call out these things. That's what I notice. And I'm kind of an old dude, and I'd say I'm pretty, like, moderately liberal. I tread the line on some things, and some things I don't. And but I think people are afraid and see something different and say, no, 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 no. I don't want that. I want Tom Clancy. I want a white dude, and I want him to be a hero, and I want him to have a penis, and I want him to shoot things. Okay, that's it. No, that's it. And I think honestly that is part of the problem that we're seeing here, is that you have a lot of these roles and these creatives putting people that wouldn't, in the 70s, 80s and 90s just weren't around in these roles, and putting them into these roles. And that's why people get pissy at fucking like Miles Morales. Come on, man. If you don't think some of the backlash of Miles Morales wasn't race related, it is race related. Spider-Man isn't black. Obviously, I'd blow their fucking mind if I told them that there was a black Superman. Like what? But I honestly think that's part of the problem here, and a lot of these gamers are getting older and aren't part of that kind of progressive group that these creatives are now part of. And more power to them. Let's create things that are diverse, because like not every iteration of Assassin's Creed needs to be a white dude, or it could be a girl, like Marvel Avengers had the main character being a Pakistani woman. I mean, that's kind of fucking cool. Do more shit like that, and if you don't like it, don't fucking play it.
Right, and that's kind of the hypocrisy of it, right? Is people throw up the shield of, well, games shouldn't be political, simply because, as you mentioned, they don't agree with that particular philosophy. Look, this is this is what is frustrating to me a lot of times about games and game consumerism and consumption of art and truly being a patron. So many gamers are not true patrons. So many gamers only play one game. So many gamers only play one type of game. So many gamers are unwilling to consider or be tolerant of the notion of something different than the thing that they play, the things that they've played, the types of things that they like. And that's, I mean, you hit the square on the head, right? People who critically review and consume art, like people who really like paintings, right? Like different kinds of paintings. They develop what we call a palette. They develop an ability to look at things from a different perspective and to find value in a thing. They say that this is not my particular thing, but I acknowledge that the value in its existence, and I know another person who likes paintings who likes this type of thing, right? People who critically consume movies and who truly love movies. Not people who just love Marvel movies, but people who truly love movies as an art. Right. Like different kinds of movies. I love a great Marvel movie. I will look. You don't have to call the movie. I've said it 99 times. You didn't have to call the movie Civil War. I was still going to see it. Right? It doesn't have to have this faux marketing around it to hook me.
Right.
I'm going to go see the damn Marvel movie. Right? But by the same token, I'm going to go watch, I can't even think, A Beautiful Mind, right? I'm going to go watch artsy-fartsy movies because I feel like you have to expose yourself to all these different kinds of things to kind of really get to a point where you can really evaluate a thing. I don't want to hear your opinion about games if you only play one type of thing, are only tolerant of one type of thing, don't want politics in your games. If you don't want it, that's fine. You can be a consumer. I don't need to hear your opinion on games because you're not qualified and you don't...
Yeah, I mean, your qualifications get thrown out the window because you need a certain level of maturity and experience to be able to actually, separate your feelings versus what this really is, And like you said, movies and stuff, there are movies that are fantastic movies that I fucking hate. But I look at the movies and I watch them like, I see it. I see why people like this movie. It creeps me out. Like The Labyrinth with David Bowie. No, keep that out of my house. Wizard of Oz creeps me the fuck out. People love it. I mean, there's certain movies that are just art, and they need to be judged and appreciated in a certain way. And we broached those topics with games like The Last of Us, where some people love it, some people hate it, but you can't hate it just to hate it. because it's obviously not a hated game, right? I mean, you're just doing it to be a dick. You're not judging it based on experience. You're judging it because you like Fortnite and Call of Duty, and maybe you're a toxic male that doesn't like strong female characters. Okay, then call it out. If you just come out like that, then I'm all right. Okay, I'll mute you and move on. But for you to critique these things without any experience in said medium, or it's just it's stupid. You look dumb. And honestly, that's all they do is look dumb. They end up on a ton of people's block lists, and and that's it. I don't know what good you're doing. And if you think it's gonna stop, it's not. I think we're on a path where we're gonna see things that might hurt your fragileness and might make you crawl up inside yourself. But you know what? There will be Assassin's Creed 542 and Call of Duty 57. So you're still gonna have something to play, my man. It's just it might not be what everybody else is playing at the time. So I don't know. There's plenty of games to go around.
Be on standby for that hotly anticipated Peggle 39, right? That's for you.
Yes, exactly. The non-political version of Peggle 39.
I like phones with physical keyboards. They don't make them anymore. It would be inappropriate for me to be a hater of every phone with a touch keyboard. That's just
exactly.
The world has moved on.
You have to put that shit aside, and the world has moved on, and your Blackberries are gone, and you just have to. I mean, yes, I suppose you could still be pimping a Blackberry or a Motorola Droid or something, but I mean, it is what it is, dude. You pick that phone and you reminisce about the good old days, and you move the fuck on, man. No more. We're not gonna see keyboards on phones anymore. It's game over.
All right, so that's enough for tonight's rant. Anything else we need to cover, K-Man?
Nah, man. That's all I got, dude.
All right, we will wipe our hands of that topic once again, having put it in the grave where it belongs. I'm sure it'll come back up again because Twitter doesn't ever let anything go. Thanks so very much for joining in on this episode of Why the Internet Needs to Calm the Hell Down about games. Episode number 12, recorded tonight, the 11th of January, 2021. It's a Monday. We always get our rant out and then go on with the rest of our week.
It feels good. It's like cleansing. It's
It's a gamer enema. So, thanks again for joining in. We'll be back right again here next week to do the same thing all over again. I'm not planning on playing any new games. Nothing's come out in 2021.
Not really, not yet.
So
we'll see.
Yeah. Got a new controller coming in, so I'll talk about that a little bit next week. Thrustmaster's new eSwap Pro X. So I'm going to give that
eSwap
a whirl.
Pro X.
Yeah.
Nice. I don't know if I'm going to have anything new to really... Maybe I'll discover some sort of Game Pass gem from now till next Monday. Who knows?
You never know. There's always new stuff coming on there. No doubt.
We'll see.
So thanks again for joining in with us tonight. For anybody who happened to swing by the live stream, thanks so much. We appreciate you. For those out there watching the archive version of this podcast on YouTube, we appreciate you as well too. The podcast is available on my personal YouTube channel, Agasicles, on YouTube.com. And then the audio version is available on Anchor, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and one other one that I'm dropping sync on right now. But in one of those outlets, it's out there. So, until next week, take care of yourself. Stay safe out there. Until next time, good night, good luck, and good gaming. That's going to do it for us. We're out of here.